Hello and welcome to this video. We were continuing the first chapter of your history, that is tracing changes through 1,000 years. In last video we were continuing the new social and political groups, and in this video we will discuss about the emergence of Jatis. As society became more differentiated, people were grouped into jatis or subcaste. As we discussed in last video, that gradually the displaced forest dwellers came to cities and other urban areas and took the occupation of peasants. Gradually, they got influenced by the market, by the chiefs, and gradually they became a part of complex society. As the complexity of the society grew, people were grouped into jatis or subcastes. We already discussed about the four hierarchy of social order in Indian subcontinent according to the Vedas, that is Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Sudras. These all four social hierarchy are caste, four different caste. But jatis means subcaste. There are further division among the four group of social order which are further called jatis or subcastes. These jatis were ranked on the basis of their backgrounds and their occupations. A particular jati has some social rank according to its background and its people's occupation. Ranks were not fixed permanently and varied according to the power, influence, and resources controlled by members of the jati. And whatever rank a jati was categorized, the rank was not permanent. They were flexible and changed often according to the power of that jati people, the influence of that jati people, and the resource controlled by them. The status of a particular jati could vary from area to area. For example, suppose there is a jati called X. Suppose it is not fixed everywhere. Suppose the kind of rank, position, and social respect it has in place A, it might differ from its power, its influence in place B. In current time also, the position, the status of a particular jati varies from place to place. It might varies from district to district, from state to state, like that. Jatis framed their own rules and regulations to manage the conduct of their members. In current time also, there were many norms and code of conduct that are prescribed to a particular jati which they bound to follow. You might have experienced the same. And these regulations were enforced by an assembly of elders described in some areas as the Jati Panchayat. And whatever code of conduct a Jati decided to follow, the code of conduct were cross checked and often regulated by a group of elder of that particular jati who were known as Jati Panchayat. They look after their jati member, their fellow member, that whether they are following those code of conduct or not. If they do not, then there are some provisions of fines, punishment, etc. But jatis were also required to follow the rules of their villages. Several villages were governed by a chieftains. Together they were only one small unit of a state. And it is not like that the jati, a particular jati people, were only have to follow the code of conduct prescribed for their jati. Rather, they also have to follow the code of conduct of their locality, of their village. For example, let's take the example of a festival of Odisha like Nuakhai, right? Every people in Odisha probably celebrate the occasion Nuakhai. But at the same time, discuss with your friends, for example, that how they celebrate the festival Nuakhai. And you will amazed to see that if you have a group of 5 to 6 friends, probably everyone or some of your friend might observe the same occasion in a different way, and that is called their own code of conduct. So in Odisha, every people observe the occasion Nuakhai, but everyone has their own way, own code of conduct to celebrate the occasion. Like that, although Jati people were bound to follow the code of conduct prescribed for their own jati, but at the same time they also obey the code of conduct, the rules that are laid by the village people to govern their village. Now we will discuss about the regions and empires. Large states like the Cholas, Tughlaqs, or Mughals encompassed many regions. In ancient time, there were several states like those were controlled by the Cholas, as you can see here in the map. These are the area that are ruled by the Cholas, and these the pink shade areas are the areas which were not directly governed by the Cholas but were influenced by the Chola rulers. Same here in this map, you can see that these pink shaded areas are the areas those were controlled by the Tughlaq rulers. So, large states like the Cholas, the Tughlaqs, the Mughals, you can see here the whole yellow and orange areas were controlled by the Mughal. So these areas encompass many regions, like many of current states were under the control of Mughals. Like you can see here the whole Utkal Pradesh, the whole Bengal, the whole Patna, Ayodhya, Banaras, which is currently in Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Agra, Punjab, almost all part of Indian subcontinent were under Mughals influence. Except these Cholas, Tughlaqs, and Mughals, there were some other kings also, like the Sultan of Delhi, Ghiyasuddin Balban. A Sanskrit prasasti praising the Delhi Sultan Ghiyasuddin Balban explained that he was the ruler of a vast empire stretched from Bengal, that is Gauda, in the east to Ghazni, that is Ghazana, in Afghanistan in the west, and included all the South India, which was known as Dravida at that time. So there was a Sanskrit prasasti. We already read about prasasti in your junior class, class 6th, but let me define it once more for you. Prasasti means a inscription which were written over hard rock surface in the praise of a king or some ruler. So there is a Sanskrit prasasti, means that prasasti is written in Sanskrit language, which was in praise of Delhi Sultan Ghiyasuddin Balban, and that prasasti explains some point about Ghiyasuddin Balban, like he was the ruler of a vast territory which include the current Bengal, Ghazni to the current parts of South India, which was known as Dravida earlier. People of different regions like the people of Gauda, that means Bengal, Andhra, Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Gujarat, apparently fled before his army. By 700, many regions already possessed distinct geographical dimensions and their own language and cultural characteristic. And the vast region which were ruled by the Ghiyasuddin Balban were included so many distinct languages. For example, take the ruling state of Mughals. We already seen in the map that Mughal were almost ruled the whole India. You can see here in the map the whole yellow and orange shaded area were ruled by the Mughals, which includes the present day Odisha, Maharashtra, Karnataka, parts of Tamil Nadu, Delhi, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and many more parts. And as we know that people of Odisha speak Odia language, whereas people of Maharashtra speak Marathi, people of West Bengal speak Bengali, and like that, many other states have their own local language. As these rulers like the Tughlaq, Cholas, Mughals, Ghiyasuddin Balban, they ruled a vast territory. Their region contained many different language speaking people and different culture. There was considerable conflict between these states. When there is a lot of diversity of culture, language, food habit, and all, conflict is a very common thing to arise. There were also existence of conflict because of the diversity existed within their political territory. Occasionally, dynasties like the Cholas, Khaljis, Tughlaq, and Mughals were able to build an empire that was pan regional, spanning diverse regions. And some rulers were there, like the Cholas, the Khaljis, the Tughlaqs, the Mughals, who were pan regional ruler. Pan regional means beyond the limit of a particular political area. So when a single ruler regulate or rule a vast area, it is very common to occur the cultural and linguistic differences and diversity. But despite of that, there were very successful rulers like the Cholas, Khaljis, Tughlaq, Mughals, who were successfully controlled a pan-regional area. Like the Mughal, they ruled almost the whole Indian subcontinent. And we already knew that in India there are several linguistic people, there are several different cultural groups, and despite of that diversity, they were very successfully managed to rule the vast areas. But not all the rulers were so successful in controlling pan regional occupation. Very few were succeeded the pan regional ruling. When the Mughal Empire declined in the 18th century, it led to the re emergence of regional states. Until the Mughal were ruling, they successfully ruled a pan regional area where there were diversity of culture and language. But after their falling in the late 18th century, again the regional ruler were re-emerged. But years of imperial pan regional rule had altered the character of the regions. Across most of the subcontinent, the regions were left with legacy of big and small states that had ruled over them. But despite of the emergence of regional power again after the falling of Mughal, because of the long term ruled as a pan regional region, their characteristic of some region were altered over time. They changed over time due to the influence they got from the ruler or their neighboring areas, etc. And this led to emergence of many distinct and shared traditions, the management of the economy, elite culture and language. And because of the impact of pan regional regulation, there were many distinct shared tradition were there. Shared tradition means where people share the culture happily. For example, the Kart festival, the Ratha Yatra. It is the most famous festival of Odisha, but there are several devotees across India and across the world who come to Odisha in order to observe the Kart festival. So that is called shared tradition. Means the Kart festival is the traditional festival of Odisha, but people of other region were also delightedly celebrate that occasion. That is their tradition. So there were evidence and there are emergence of shared tradition, management of economy and elite culture and languages. Through the 1,000 years between 700 and 1750, the characteristic of different regions did not grow in isolation. Rather, the tradition and the characteristic of those regions were grew combinedly with the characteristics of inclusion of other religion, languages and culture. They did not grew isolatedly or separately. Isolation means separation, segregation. These regions felt the impact of large pan regional forces of integration without ever quite losing their distinctiveness. And that inclusion, the religion or the culture which grew inclusively, they grew inclusively without losing their own identity. They hugged other religion, other culture. They get influenced by others religion and culture without losing their soul, without losing their identity. For example, take the example of Christmas. We all celebrate the Christmas. Christmas is obviously not a festival which is emerged within Indian subcontinent, but we influenced by the Christmas celebration, or we got the idea of celebrating Christmas when Britisher rules us, because Christmas is their festival and we gradually observed from them and we also celebrate the festival. But that does not mean that we have to turn into Christianity in order to observe Christmas. That is called inclusive celebration. Means we celebrate others' occasion without losing our distinctiveness. For example, we celebrate Durga Puja. Durga Puja is very popular festival of Bengalis, mainly the West Bengal. And we also celebrate the same festival. But that does not force us to turn into Bengali or to adopt their culture. We celebrate the Durga Puja festival with our own identity. We celebrate it as the people of Odisha. That is inclusiveness. When you have respect for others' culture, others' language, others' tradition without hating your own or without converting into them. That's all about this video. Thank you.